So now we return to the main timeline of events. Will Frost get a frosty reception, or better yet, maybe a bowl of Frosties? And by the way, that's Frosted Flakes in America, in case you're confuzzled. Hey folks, MasakoX here. Something from Dragon Ball Super that could have been done better? Perish the thought. I know! It seems so bizarre that something in that series was not exactly perfect, or at least solid. Shocking. But jokes aside, there was something in the Universe 6 tournament arc that I think that we can mostly agree that we would have liked to see instead of what we actually got. And that is Frost actually being a good guy. At first, I think that was what we were going to be getting, but instead of that, we basically got a carbon copy of Freeza, only less successful and more blue. Dragon Ball likes its blue characters, doesn't it? So what I'm trying to get at here is what might be nice is to explore a timeline where that was the case. I mean, not Frost not being blue, actually indulging in the idea of opposites in Universe 6 to Universe 7. That would be great, instead of just having the same. So in this timeline, Frost is as nice and honourable as we were led to believe, eventually, for the first few episodes of the tournament. There will be no disappointing revelations here, but certainly some interesting tensions in regards to the likes of Hit, with his overly intimidating aura in regards to our blue friend, who is making good from his conversion. In the last part, which was the first, Frost did start off as a con artist with his marauding crew, but he soon changed his tune when on the planet Mayonnaise. Eschewing his crew, realizing what he was doing was a bad thing, he would then soon befriend Cabba and become the planet's hero, and even get a nice little holiday home to boot. His former crew were aghast at this sudden switch, and then, lo and behold, Hit gets involved in the fracas. I wonder how he got involved, and I bet it has nothing to do with Frost's former crew, or money exchanging hands. The tournament between Universes 6 and 7 is about to begin, but Frost feels the ever-seeing sight of Hit on the back of his neck. He knows that this guy might be after him right now, and as for the opponents, well, they look pretty tough too. It starts with a written exam, which Frost passes with relative ease. And I think that was fueled also by stress of Hit being around, which would make him much more tense than the original. Regardless of this, the Saiyan police guy and the Frost man are now firm friends, with Cabba being the best buddy to Frost. It's actually nice to see this change, and I think that this transpiring of the tournament arc will go a lot more smoothly for him, and much to our liking, than in the original. We resume the story back at the tournament grounds, where the Universe 6 team are getting properly acquainted, with Batamo, by the way, being a big fan of Frost's former heroics. And meanwhile, Cabba is taking in the revelation that there were Saiyans indeed in Universe 7 as well. And they certainly looked quite different, very mean, not like them at all. As the young man is surveying them, Frost is giving them a glance as well, and isn't all that pleased to see this intense looking group of fighters. Not only that, but that short spiky haired one over there, that Saiyan from the other universe, is watching him very closely and shrewdly. That look, that was no resting monkey face or anything like that. That gaze was that of pure malice. What kind of person was he? How bitter was he? He didn't want to know, but wait, is that part of Hit's plan? Oh, did Sharbat, his former ally, actually manage to employ someone from the other universe to end him as well as Hit, coming in from both sides? No, this is simply not possible. There has to be something else to all of this, surely. Keen to try and dispel this feeling of dread and foreboding and paranoia, Frost carefully moves to the others in this party. They have two Saiyans, he was all too aware of that chestnut, one Namekian fellow who looked equally as mean. Then there was that pig blob thing over there. That creature looked very unusual indeed. He didn't remember anything like that in his universe. However, Frost did breathe a sigh of relief when he realised that that being, which is Majin Buu, was in no condition to fight. It had simply fallen asleep during the exam. So I guess that means that be fighter gone, one down? Then there's that thing with the weird nips. You shall ignore that. Whatever the situation, Frost has to show his usefulness or else risk the ire of Champa. Are you alright, buddy? Cabba tries to comfort his friend upon seeing Frost shaking slightly in his seat after the written test was over. Yeah, I'm just seeing beings from another universe. It makes me feel pretty surreal, don't you think? To think that there are more of your kind in another part of reality. It's mad. He nervously laughs. Cabba then realizes the gravitas as well. You're telling me. Those two guys over there seem to be saying, from what I could gather talking to them, I mean, they're apparently the only two pure-blooded Saiyans left in their universe. Can you believe it? Their Sadala fell in some sort of mysterious circumstance. I also heard that those two are crazy strong. Some kind of hidden power, I think. Frost then asks Cabba if there is any reason that the little one over there was looking fire at him. Cabba shakes his head and he doesn't know. What about the Namekian? Anything different about them? Frost eyes Piccolo for a moment. Cabba takes a second look. He seems normal to me, like our Namekians. Maybe a different shade of green, I don't know. I mean, you can't miss them though, they're green. I've met some of them before, but they can be pretty tough. But I don't think that this one is stronger than you or I, my friend. Frost forces a smile. That's something in their favor. Thank you for believing in me, my friend. We should introduce ourselves properly before the show starts, right? Good idea! I wonder what happened to the other Saiyans in their timeline. Before Frost could gird his loins and finish his train of thought, Cabba was gone. He was already talking with the two strangers. Frost, reluctantly, stomps after Cabba with quiet indignation. He stops for a moment, a little too nervous to speak directly to them, but he's also trying to avoid hit for a while, so he settles with watching Cabba talk to his new friends from afar. Then he has an idea. Something that could make him effective in the tournament. He remembers that he has poison needles. Maybe if he could use them. He looks to them again for a moment. That could work. While Lord Champa doesn't seem like the kind of being that would mind him using this underhanded tactic in cheating, there is another factor to consider here. If, by any chance, Hit saw him breaking the rules of the tournament, well, he might feel ever more inclined to eliminate him after the show was over, when nobody was looking. And besides, he doesn't really have to try that much. All he needs to do for Champs is to put on a good show. There is no chance that these Saiyans can beat Hit. They will win as a team, and that's all that matters. The Saiyans might have a chance against him or Cabba, but Hit, oh, that guy's on a whole other level. So, when the fight starts, he observes the whole duel between the Saiyan known as Son Goku and Botamo with confidence. At first, Frost in fact seems disappointed with the Saiyan's strength, as he seems to have trouble fighting Botamo. Well, I guess he isn't smart enough to deal with Botamo's little gimmick. All he is doing the same thing again and again. Cabba, however, being a Saiyan, is not quite so sure. Why so serious, Cabba? This Saiyan is a buffoon thinking that will work. Frost asks his friend. Don't be so sure. He's sussing Botamo out, I know it. Frost looks again with this new perspective, and then sees what Cabba is seeing. Is that person having fun and toying with Botamo? Well, his overconfidence is going to be his downfall. But for now, Botamo is held off of the ring. This was almost clever. The next fight would be between himself and whoever Universe 7 decides to send in, as in this version of the story, the fighters are allowed to switch if they haven't been knocked out. So while this Son Goku fellow is pretty eager to challenge our hero, the Namekian steps in and asks to have a chance with that one. They both bow to each other and the Namekian introduces himself as Piccolo. He tosses down his weighted clothing and Frost allows him to do so. When the gong rings, he charges towards his opponent, who vanishes and starts charging some sort of attack. Well, our space pirate surely has to interrupt this, and he sends several beams towards his opponent. But the Namekian, understandably, dodges them skillfully. Then he starts using multiform. As he is not choosing to use his needles this time, having thought against it obviously, Frost has to be more cautious. He powers up to his second form to be able to handle multi-directional attacks and starts to dart around the ring to try and quickly find the master copy, the right Piccolo. After a little bit of a scuffle and some minor errors, he does find the right afterimage. They face each other in a pretty deadly flurry, but Frost had been training a lot with Cabba recently and is a little bit too much for Piccolo. He is able to knock the Namekian out of the ring fair and square. After that, he helps him up, and reluctantly, Piccolo accepts his defeat. That was impressive. Likewise, you're unlike any Namekians I've met. Tell me, why is your comrade looking at me like that way?
Oh, ignore him. He always looks that way. You just happen to resemble someone from our universe he doesn't like, that's all.
Oh?
I wouldn't be flattered if I were you. Your doppelganger was a villain that destroyed his planet. But don't worry about him. He's been put in his place. And besides, I can feel you're very different from him.
Frost felt like his stomach started to head towards his throat. Well, thank you, Piccolo. Whew! He had made a good impression with the big green one. The next battle is the spiky head Saiyan, and yeah, Frost feels the animosity from the first moment the warrior sets his eyes on him. That's all Vegeta could say. Hello? Excuse me? Have I done something wrong to disrespect you, sir? I don't believe we've had the pleasure in meeting prior to this encounter.
The only pleasure I have in meeting you is to tear you apart.
Well, he's quite the grumpy one, isn't he? In an instant, Vegeta powers up, which makes his hair turn golden, his power skyrocketing. Frost is almost knocked out of the ring purely by the aura that is generated. One thing was for sure, he needs to transform himself, and do it pretty quickly. Very few people had seen Frost's final form before, and rarely has he had to resort to it, but he gives everything he can to try and block the incoming attacks. This Saiyan is tough, but in his final form, Frost shows a lot of resilience, something that despite his rudeness, this Vegeta fellow seems to tolerate. As Frost begins to get some hits onto his opponents and even starts to get equal footing with Vegeta, he just merely smirks. Now, his hair starts to glow with a bluish flash, and yeah, Frost gets totally dominated. He has no chance. The Saiyan simply knocks him out of the ring without a second thought, nor any further words exchanged. So, yeah, it turns out he was just toying with Frost, who looks to Vegeta, walking away back to his team.
Well, you're unlike Frieza, that's for sure.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Sir? Sir? No, Vegeta was not playing ball. He wasn't saying anything else. Alright, this one must be the stronger one, right? It can deal with him, for sure. For sure. Cabba runs to his friend. Hey, you did great, Frost. Why don't you get some rest? Yeah, Frost is still a little bit shaken up by the strength of this one, but he could do with a rest. The next fight with Vegeta is a little bit more entertaining, though the poor guy really didn't deserve to be insulted like that. But despite this, Frost feels that Hit is watching him the whole time, not breaking his gaze for anything, but he is also not saying anything. He tries to focus on watching the Vegeta fight, and after that, watching Cabba learning the tricks of the trade of Super Saiyan with Vegeta. But even with that, his buddy isn't able to handle him. Frost overhears that he is interested in seeing Sadala someday, that Vegeta, and this starts to make sense. He is not after him personally, that one. He just resembles a villain who destroyed his homeworld. Turns out that the Namekian was telling the truth. Well, that's a relief. Another relief is that Hit is going to stop staring at him because he will be the one fighting Vegeta for now. And just like in the original, he wins. Well, Hit has taken down their strongest warrior. Surely the other two are not as strong. Though this Vegeta surely has the heart of the warrior. I don't know, Frost. Cabba looks at his friend. This Goku fellow looks almost as powerful. What comes next is probably the most impressive fight Frost has ever witnessed. That Son Goku is going toe-to-toe with Hit. But yeah, we're all familiar with that fight, so I won't go into detail. It ends like the original, with Champa and Beerus bickering amongst themselves, which irritates Goku and Hit. When Frost then sees Monarca, he doesn't know what to think, but he might be the only one realizing that Hit is just giving up the fight, instead of playing along only to mess around with Champa. Did Hit really have to do that? Did he just cost them their victory on purpose? Champa is absolutely furious, not just with Hit, but with everyone. As far as he was concerned, they all disappointed, and he is ready to erase them on the spot. Frost bemoans this. He had done everything he could, and because of Hit's sudden rebellious action, they were all getting it in the neck. That is until a being called Zeno shows up. It quickly becomes clear to Frost that this whole Omni King is a very important figure. So important, in fact, that even the two Cat brothers fear him deeply. Interesting. In the midst of the whole chaos, Hit moves away from Champa and whispers something to Frost.
I wouldn't go home if I were you.
And just walks off, taking his commission, which was the travel cube, with him. Frost doesn't care, though, to watch him leave, but he is left with the words that Hit said to him for a long time. What does he mean by that? What kind of threat was that? Is he just waiting in the wings for him to leave the tournament area and then pounce on him unawares? How can he live like this? What can he do? Suddenly, he spots Cabba and Vegeta talking about visiting each other's universe again. That's it! Frost decides now is the moment to interject. Say, Cabba, our new friends seem to be a little low on the Saiyan peacekeeper front. Not that quantity is better than quality, of course, as I'm sure you two can handle any evildoer coming your way, but wouldn't it just be awesome if we could learn something from one another? Vegeta narrows his gaze. Cabba then suddenly becomes all bashful in front of Vegeta. Without knowing it, Frost had basically made him become Vegeta's direct student, instead of in the original where it was sort of more of an irreverence and it really didn't go anywhere. I would love that, Vegeta. I would love to train under you. Vegeta thinks about this for a moment and then looks to the side. I could show you a thing or two, but that one, forget it. Goku then grins widely. Hey, I can help that guy. I always wondered what it would be like to train with Freeza if he turned good. Vegeta scoffs at both Goku and Frost. Just remember, if you are planning anything funny, you saw how easily I can end you. No, not at all, sir. No, not at all. I'm not. Champa is, of course, furious that these two pretty strong beings were leaving his universe, but Frost manages to convince him that their training will allow them to become stronger themselves for Universe 6. They can come back and pass down what they've learnt to other fighters, including in Cabba's world. That is enough to convince Champa, and he waves them off without a second glance. So, Frost shall live. For now. Those Saiyans can keep him safe. He is not aware, however, that Hit is watching him still from a distance. It's very hard to say what are his thoughts right now on the matter, and that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Does Frost realise that Hit can travel through universes as well as they can? Is Hit losing loads of work because of this vendetta? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!